This is lesson 119. We're going to learn a new formula that will haunt you for the rest of your days of math. It's not that haunting, it's just long, okay? So we're going to first figure out or find out what that is. Let's say you have something like this. You have an equation. We just learned in the last lesson how to solve for x by completing the square. This time we're going to solve for x by using a formula. But first, let's figure out where that formula came from. We're going to see how it's derived. So we're going to look something like this and say, all right, we see this. We want to get x by itself. And so that means we have to do some manipulating of that equation. If my voice got far away, it's because I snuck over and grabbed the book to make sure I don't have to edit my video and make sure I don't make a mistake. All right, so the first thing they do to get x by itself is let's take everybody. We want to get rid of the a. Let's say we want to get a out from the bottom, or from the x squared there. So we can go ahead and do something legal. We can divide everybody by a. That's totally allowed, as long as it happens to the whole equation. So that is a legal maneuver. When we do that, those go away. We end up with this. Okay. So we're getting a little closer to getting x by itself. The next step, well, we're going to complete the square of this thing. Okay. So like yesterday, when we were doing this, we're going to leave a gap. We're going to subtract him and put him over there. Okay? And now do you remember where we get this? We divide this by 2 and square it. So when we divide this by 2 and square it, half of this squared looks like this. B over 2a, that's half of it, squared. Okay, and we have to do it to this one. Here, I'll actually write it out. When we square it, it's b squared over 4a squared. Okay, and that's what that is. So let's take this factored form, and it's x plus b over 2a squared equals, let's see if we can put this all over 1. We're going to give it a common denominator. So I want this side to all be over one thing. So that means we have to multiply this by 4a in order to have the same bottoms, right? So what that is negative 4ac over 4a squared. Okay, you see that? Where I got this one. And then we put those together. They go all over 4a squared, and it's b squared minus 4ac. Okay, if any of this is complicated for you, it's okay. We're just showing you how, and then we're just going to hand you the equation anyway. So you can either figure out how to derive it or memorize the equation. Most people don't memorize this until they're older. They just memorize the formula. Okay, so once we get to that, we're going to take square root of both sides. So equals plus or minus, well, the square root of that is 2a, so what that is square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, then you're going to have to subtract 2a from both sides, okay, to get x alone. So when we're all said and done, if we subtracted, that's b over 2a up here, put those over, then it would be what our final answer is. X equals negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So that is the quadratic formula. This is exciting stuff. You're going to use this over and over and over. Memorizing is a little tricky because it's got 3 letters plus an x, squares, 4s, 2s, and maybe you could remember how to do this. This is a little more advanced, but this is just showing you why. This is how we get x all by itself to solve for a quadratic. So using what we know there, this formula, let's solve. We're going to find the roots, which means solve for x is the same thing, finding the roots. So what I do when I teach people this is first, okay, here's our formula, right? And we look at this. This is our A, this one is our B, and this one is our C. Always in that order, as long as it's squared down, it's a trinomial, quadratic written in standard form. Okay, so if I go ahead and write A equals 3, B equals 2, and C equals -7. Make sure you see that that's a -7. So once we have these 3 numbers, we plug it into this formula. So I'm going to go ahead and say x equals -b. So I write -2. I run out of space there. B squared minus 4 times A times C. So you see this is your B, A, C. All over 2A. Okay. So that means -2. Now we're going to simplify what's under here. This is 4 minus minus, so that's going to be a plus. 4 plus 12 times 7. I'm going to have to turn the camera off and do this in a minute because I'm getting okay. So there we are, simplified more. Oh, do you see I made a mistake here? Sorry, I think because I kept hearing mom, mom, mom. Here A is 3. So on the bottom here is a 6. Should pause and notice that. Okay, see that mistake I made? Okay. We have that. And now
there's someone at the door.
From here, we're going to simplify it. Equals, oops, I wrote equals equals. Sorry, I got very distracted. There's about 10 interruptions while I was doing this one. All right, so that's the same as 16 times, no, I'm sorry, 4 times 22. So that's the same as 4 times 22, so that 4 can come out. That root reduces to this, all over 6. Okay, so now I'm going to peek and see what the book wants us to do as far as simplifying that any further. It can be simplified, and what we want to do is notice that if we can simplify all of these if we divide everybody by 2. Okay, so that's a negative or a 1, that's a 1, and that's a 3. So how does that look when we're done? -1 plus or minus square root of 44. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. The book has this better without all the mistakes. I'm letting a lot of mistakes go by, more than usual. Should look like that, over 3. And this represents 2 answers, okay? Either -1 plus square root of 2 over 3, or -1 minus square root of 2, all divided by 3. Okay, I'm going to do the next one. And the book also does it. So if I am doing a terrible job today, then go ahead and also look in your book. Okay, we're going to use quadratic formula, so that means everybody needs to be in standard form. So this should be positive. The leading term always needs to be positive, so I'm going to add it to both sides. So what we get is x squared minus 6 equals x. And then we got to get that to the left. So the equation we're dealing with is x squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. And now we look at this and find our a. Our a is a 1, our b is a 1, minus 1, and our c is a negative 6. So we're going to say a equals 1, b equals negative 1, and c equals negative 6. We're going to plug those into our quadratic equation. So I'm going to move that over here. All right, so negative b. So negative b is negative 1, which turns into a positive 1, plus or minus b squared, negative 1, well, I'm going to write it this way so you can see b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, and then we simplify that. Equals 1 plus or minus square root of 1 plus 24 is that. So it's actually positive 25 all over 2. Which is 1 plus or minus 5 over 2, which means if we add 1 plus 5 is 6 divided by 2 is 3, or 1 minus 5 is negative 4 over 2, and there we go. Oh, there we go. And the next example, so that one wasn't too bad. Same thing, this one is out of order. So if you get those in order, I want you to go ahead and try it and see what you get. When I get it in order, I get x squared minus x minus 7 equals 0. So we get a equals 1, b equals negative 1, and c equals negative 7. I'm going to go ahead and put that into my equation. Oops, plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a, 2 times 1. Okay, so we simplify this, 1 plus or minus, and that is 1 plus 28 all over 2. 1 plus or minus square root of 29 all over 2. And that can be the final answer. Okay, let's go ahead and do the next one. Well, the practice. I want you to try those two and see what you get, and then check back with me. All right, a equals 2, b equals negative 3, c equals negative 7. So 9 plus 56. Let me check. 9 plus 8 times 7. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and say I think that's it. I don't think 65 can be, square root of 65 can be reduced. And that's our final answer. And I did check it in the book, and that is correct. Okay, this one turns into that. B equals 3, C equals negative 1. Okay, B squared, or negative B plus or minus A, C, Simplify. Oops, that's a negative. That looks like 9 plus 8. Let me double check. That's a 1, yep. No, 8 times 2. So 9 plus 8 is okay. And that is the final answer for this one. And I checked in the back of the book. If you got those, good job. Okay. It's kind of getting sad, but there is only one lesson left.